I mean, I did promise
Yep.
the internet that I'd make cat girls. We could make a robot cat girl.
I mean, how much of a buddy? How many applications do you thought is there? You know, can you have a romantic partner, a sex
I
partner?
mean,
A lot of
it's
lonely
probably
people out there.
inevitable.
Believe it or not, Elon's probably not joking. Speaking as someone with a background in electromechanical engineering technology, I'm a bit more qualified than usual to talk about how feasible this actually is. If you're new here, welcome Virtual Dreamer. My name is Gregory, and let's dive right into this. Let's first clarify a couple of things here about Elon's statements. First, he mentioned robot cat girls. So we won't be talking about genetically engineering cat girls here. I suck at biochemistry anyway, so no complaints from me. Second, when I'm talking about cat girls here, know that I'm using it as a shorthand for all genders and varieties of animal-eared humanoids here. Cat boys, bunny girls, elves, humans, it's all included here. That out of the way, let's address the question here. Is Elon talking out of his ass, or can we actually have robot cat girls in real life? In short, yes, it is possible to build robot cat girls. Locomotion, materials, AI, it's all coming along. For movement, all you have to look at is the viral videos from Boston Dynamics to see that robots are able to get around without falling over constantly now. Materials-wise, polymers and silicone tech is good enough to cut into the demand for actual real-life prostitutes. I'd say if our tech is good enough to f***, then it is good enough to make a cat girl. To say nothing for the less ratchet among us who can probably guess that fur isn't an issue. Oh wait. AI-wise, things are obviously a bit more tenuous here, as we definitely aren't at the point where you confuse an NPC or Siri for a real-life person. But if we really emphasize the cat kimono part here, I'd say the best we've got can probably do the trick. Give me the job and I'll probably get you an 10 dogs plus cats or Love Plus solution with XR mapping and calling it a day. As you can see, we're doing a lot better on this stuff than one would think. When a regular dude like me can probably build a cat girl as a hobby project, I'd say the future of having a cat girl in your home probably isn't too far.
What do you picture the cost of one of these being?
Like less than a car.
So even if it starts at 50K, within a few years it's down to 20K or lower or whatever.
It bears mentioning here that while I did mention that we have the foundation for a lot of aspects of a robot cat girl available, I didn't mention how expensive, complex, and compromised these things really are. To get the obvious out of the way, the cost for the different elements here is in the thousands of dollars for the cheapest items like mass-produced TPE bodies, while sophisticated motors, gears, and other mechanisms that are in the locomotion components easily bring the cost into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even if this tech gets refined to borderline perfection in the next 10 years or so, it's probably not going to be everywhere for several decades more till it becomes remotely affordable. Even then, the next issue here becomes one of maintenance. TPE, silicone, furs, they require some proper consideration when it comes to the matter of keeping them clean and hygienic, even without the dirty deeds some of us have in mind. The actual robotics involved in locomotion are worse yet, and probably won't be easily accessible for casual use for decades, if ever, really. So we're going to need to establish robot repair workshops or robot vets/doctors for this kind of stuff to be feasible for consumers. Which ultimately brings us to the last question regarding the AI aspect, as a lot of the reason people care for their pets so much is the kinship involved with another living being. Seeing as only a tiny amount of people have gone so far enough as to marry an AI waifu at this point, I don't think we've quite gotten there yet for most people on the partnership ne compagnon aspect of things. And I don't think we're going to be there for another good while, seeing as we still haven't even managed to so much as localize Google Assistant or Siri on our devices without an internet connection. So yeah, whether it's the cost, the complexity, or the AI credibility, we're still a good way away from properly having chocolate or vanilla working in our pastry shops. But for what it's worth, I think the bright side here is that most of the issues I mentioned, at the very least, may actually be resolved in our lifetimes. No AI gods required. Unlike Nerve Gear, the path to each of the problems I mentioned being solved is actually within sight. Elon's analogy of robots being car-like in cost actually works pretty well to explain this matter here, as mass production in tandem with older models getting cheaper will probably help a lot with getting costs to the level that normal people can afford over the course of a few decades. Seeing as robots are going to permeate our lives in facets beyond f***ing, some relief can be had in knowing that robot mechanics are probably going to have to be a thing to aid with those applications anyway. At that point, checkups for your robot cat girls will probably just be another routine job. with maybe a few more heebie-jeebies involved for my brethren. Regarding the whole AI aspect of things, I think it bears mentioning that while I don't expect our catgirl AIs to pass the Turing test in the next decade or so, I do believe it bears remembering that people have attachments to even inanimate objects without the whole humanization of full personalities and physical bodies involved. If people can care for a Nintendog, Pokemon, or Tamagotchi, I think they'll care for a moving, emoting cat girl just fine. By the time we're getting convincing enough AI to garner true human-level empathy, I'm hoping that we'll have legislation in place regarding the ethics of developing truly intelligent AI, if not just societal decency in place. The thought of true AIs being essentially brainwashed or designed to fulfill our fantasies makes me sick, so I'll stick with indulging people with dreamy fantasies that I'll be fabricating in Get a Life Simulator or any of my catgirl projects, but yeah, I'm drawing the line at convincing intelligence. Seeing as I'm already looking far enough ahead into the future on this issue to get ethics involved here, I think it should be pretty clear that I don't think Elon is a liar here. The issue won't be much more noteworthy than the matter of personalized Iron Man suits or mechs for most of us for a good while, but don't let the progress escape too far from your thoughts. Otherwise, you'll be caught off guard by what we techies have in store for you in the future. Till that future comes, virtual dreamers, this has been Gregory, logging out.